What's your name?
Stefanie Miller.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a bartender.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up outside of Houston in Pearland, Texas.
What kind of kid were you?
Oh, like nerdy, quiet. I remember being probably one of my daycares, them telling my mom that I was more mature for my age, which I feel like I probably stayed that maturity at some point, not gotten more. But just quiet, like was always in like the gifted and talented classes and didn't have like a lot of friends, but was good at school and read a lot.
Well, why were you mature for your age?
I think it was just because I was more, I think I remember being more just quiet, like I wouldn't engage and run around and be like a kid, I want to say, which sounds silly because I know that I did like kid stuff, but I think that's what that teacher was saying at that daycare.
What do you think, you were
that day.
shy?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Did you have a lot of friends?
Growing up in my neighborhood, I was friends with all the kids that grew up in the neighborhood, but you know, those moved away, or like I was friends with some girls that I was in Girl Scouts with, and then we stopped being friends, and then I would have like some more friends. So not really a whole lot of friends ever, not a big group, and I'm really not in touch with anybody that I was friends with when I was younger, like little.
What grade are we talking about?
Oh gosh, everything, all the grades, 5th, 6th. So like specifically like going into junior high and high school, I probably had like 2 or 3 like really good friends, and then like maybe a group of maybe 5 or 6 people that I was like knew and would sit with at lunch and stuff like that. But
So you said gifted and
talented, like the accelerated, like the, I guess now it's like I don't know what the AP. I mean, into high school it got into like AP and all that kind of stuff. So
what were you gifted and talented? This is as a kid, right?
yeah, just school. I liked reading. I was good at math. Yeah, I don't know. Books.
Did you were you an active kid?
Not really. Like I remember wanting to take like dance classes or be in cheerleading or something like that, and my mom and dad worked so much that they didn't have time to like take us to practices or rehearsals when any of those kind of meetings or anything like that. So I didn't do any kind of extracurricular things. I didn't really, I think before my freshman year of high school, one of my friends was going to run cross country, so I started running with her to do that. But that was the first kind of active things that I did.
First active thing you did was in high school.
Yeah.
So when you were a kid, you didn't have any hobbies, you didn't get into anything?
Is it reading? Like that's the only thing I can think of, reading and dolls with my sister and our friends, maybe playing dolls. But
You have one sister?
I had 2. At that point, I only had one. Well, one of them is 2 years younger than me, and then when I was 12, my mom got pregnant again and had my like little sister. So there's a big gap between us. But
You close to your sister?
yeah, pretty much. Like a lot more now that we aren't in high school together. Like we definitely did not get along in high school. Me and the youngest have gotten along really well since she was born, except for when she was a teenager and she was rotten, but she's grown out of that now, so we're better.
What was that family life like, the life at home? Was that pretty typical, or?
I feel like it was pretty typical. My mom worked a lot, and my dad was like home with us more, so my dad would wake us up in the mornings. My dad would get us ready for school and braid our hair and make us breakfast and do all that kind of stuff. And my dad, this is one of my favorite things to talk about. Every day for lunch, he would make us a lunch in a brown paper bag and would draw or design something on that brown paper bag different every single day, where it got to the point like when you would go to school, like our teachers wouldn't be like, "What did your dad draw today? Like, what was it?" So
I've heard about Dad's doing that. Was he particularly artistic?
Just kind of like a doodler, I guess. He didn't do anything artistic-wise outside of that, but just did our lunch bags. Oh, and he made our Halloween costumes too for us, like actual sewing machine, like clown costumes, princess costumes, things like that. A few years.
You close to your parents?
Yeah, I talk to my mom a lot, and I talk to my mom probably almost every day, and I like to call and check in with my dad.
So you weren't a very active kid.
No.
You didn't have time to take you out. You just read a lot.
Yeah, pretty much.
What would you read? Just curious.
Oh, I remember started off with probably like Babysitters Club, stuff like that. Nancy Drew, like little series and things. And then in middle school, I found like a fantasy writer called Piers Anthony. And so he would write these books about this like fantasy world. He was like big on like puns, and it was all kind of light. I feel like fantasy now is totally different, and I don't read too much fantasy anymore, but started off with that. And then I think when I was junior high and stuff, I started reading, my mom would read like John Grisham, so like law things, just all over.
So were you a skinny kid?
I don't remember having a problem with weight. I remember being self-conscious of my weight, like in 5th, 6th grade, like when you start, puberty and all that kind of stuff, and just feeling like you don't fit in general. I wasn't skinny, but I don't feel like I was particularly heavy. Like it wasn't anything I got.
What was that feeling? So you're only 5th and 6th grade, and you have some sort of body image that you think that you're not what?
Oh yeah, like one of my really good friends, so probably 7th, 8th grade, one of my really good friends was one of those people that's just super skinny, like just very, very, very thin, could eat whatever she wanted, whatever, just always very skinny. So I compared myself to her a lot. And I remember us like sitting down outside my front yard one day with like your legs up, and like just the way, if you're not flexing your muscles, like your calf or something, it's gonna wiggle around or whatever. Well, I remember seeing that on myself, and I stopped. I didn't wear shorts probably until after I graduated. Like I would wear them to go to the gym or to run in or something, but as far as like just wearing shorts as an outfit, a clothing outfit, I wouldn't wear it until almost college. So between probably 6th grade and.
Do you think you're skinny now?
I'm working on that. I don't feel like I'm skinny now. I'm not fat, but I recognize that I'm.
So in a proportion to you as an adult, how you perceive yourself, back then, were you a lot chubbier than you are now, or it was just something you?
It was more in my head back then than it is now. It was definitely a.
So what did you do as a kid? Did you just start eating less, or you didn't exercise because you weren't very active?
No, I just. I don't know. I remember in high school being very aware of, like, I could tell you how many calories were like in everything. I didn't really get super crazy, like anorexic or not eating, but I was very aware of like calories and trying to not eat a lot. I don't even know how I knew what you were, or thought I knew what you were supposed to eat, but.
So how long did that persist? Is this all your life, or is that?
So when I was a freshman, so I started cross country. I did one semester, and I just ended up, I had asthma for the first and only time in my life. It was like, they said it was exercise induced, but I think it was a stress thing from competing because I wasn't used to that. I hurt my knees, my ankles, my shins. I was hurt the whole time, almost that first semester. So I didn't do it anymore. And then I ran on my own outside of that, and I was fine. But my sophomore year of high school, I started dating a guy who worked out at the gym, lifted weights every single day, 7 days a week. He was super crazy about it. And I say would make me, but he convinced me and encouraged me to go to the gym with him. So when I was 16, I started lifting weights. And I am forever thankful to this guy because I would have never done that on my own. I probably wouldn't. It taught me a lot about being comfortable in the weight room. And so he and I would go to the gym, lift weights, and like I said, when I was 16. And that continued most of high school with him. But I still always was trying to be skinnier. I don't know what I was trying to be more of. I think in college I started reading those like Muscle and Fitness, Hers, or Oxygen, those kind of things, and started idealizing like that kind of image.
Tell me more about high school. So why would you get hurt all the time? You're pretty young. Why would?
I don't know. It might have just been. I really don't know. I think it probably started out with shins, like an ankle got hurt somehow, and then I started favoring that. So then my knee got hurt, or then it was shin splints. I don't know. I just remember like just being injured and not running a lot. So.
Just tell me more about high school. Were you popular?
No. No, I don't feel like, I just felt like I didn't fit in. I wasn't like part of those like cliques. I didn't hang out with the cool kids. I mean, I had friends, like I said, but.
What group do you feel like you fit into? If you were to stereotype a clique.
It was maybe, We had like, we called them bangers, like head bangers, right? They were Doc Martens and like the big jeans or whatever. And I think I was probably more friends with those kids. Maybe a couple of like the kickers, like the country kids. But definitely like the cool kids were like the preps and the jocks, and I was not friends. My boyfriend was one of them, but I didn't hang out with them or feel like I fit in with them, so.
What did you want to do when you grew up?
I had wanted to be a teacher for a while, and then I started talking to my dad about how I like math, and he and I talked about me becoming an actuary, which I wanted to do.
Sorry, what's an actuary?
An actuary. So it's like actually one of probably the nerdiest of people. I tell people that know, and they're like, that's crazy. You sit around and you look at statistics and numbers, and you could work for like an insurance company or I'm thinking like a mutual fund. I don't know if that's the right thing, but you basically just calculate risk. Figure out like if we have these people, how much their premiums need to be, like that kind of ish stuff. So it's very math oriented, and you can make a lot of money doing it. So I was like, okay, I'll go for that.
So anything happened in high school? Any events, milestones, things that stick out emotionally?
No, I don't feel like it. It wasn't, it was high school. I don't look back on it and be like, oh man, that was like the greatest time ever, but it wasn't terrible by any means.
Good. So you went to college?
I did.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to Texas A&M in College Station.
Texas A&M. And you studied what?
I started off as a math major. And I was at A&M I was in College Station for 8 years? 8 years. It took me about 6 to get my bachelor's because I took a year and a half off in there. And I graduated high school with, I was top 5% of my class. I had 32 hours of college credit from AP testing and dual credit classes and stuff I had taken. So I started off almost as a sophomore at A&M, and then it still took me 8 years to finish.
Oh, you went to school for 8 years?
I was in College Station, yeah. You could say that, kind of. I don't know about how much going to school I was doing, but.
What was that? You just had fun in college?
Yeah, so my parents when I was in high school were like very, very, very strict. Like if I got less than an A on a progress report or report card, I got grounded. And then they hated the guy that I was dating, and I would get in trouble with him. So I was grounded almost all of high school. And I get,
That was high school?
Yeah, but because of that, I think I go to college and it's freedom, and I can do what I want. My first year of college wasn't too bad, but the second year I started working at a bar, and then the drinking thing got to be way more interesting and exciting. And so I was more interested in drinking and hanging out with people and feeling cool finally and all this kind of stuff, and not really going to school or doing homework or any of those things.
Let's talk more about that. That's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So first year, you get a lot of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Drink a lot. Yeah, it's not your high school boyfriend anymore.
No.
You have another boyfriend.
Yeah.
You didn't have a problem with drinking, did you?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I totally did. I ended up getting a DUI when I was 22. And in Brazos County where I was, you had to do substance abuse counseling, and they were like, so you had to go talk to a counselor, and they were like, you need to do AA and maybe some intensive outpatient rehab. So I did all that, and I ended up quitting drinking for like 2.5 years. So
the recommendation for AA is just because you got a DUI?
Well, kind of. Like I said, when you get a DUI in that county, they make you go talk to somebody, and then based on what you tell that person. And I remember I didn't even tell her everything. Probably just that I was smoking pot too, but that wasn't ever.
So what year in college did you get this DUI?
That would have been my senior year, but I didn't have.
Senior year, the 4th year, and the 8th year?
Yeah, the fourth year. Like it should have been my senior year, but I didn't have. Up till then, I had been. At A&M, you can only drop 3 classes the whole time you're there, your whole entire time. And so I would get to a point in the semester where I was going to fail a class, but instead of just failing that class, I would just withdraw completely from the university, which means I'm paying for several semesters I didn't get credit for.
So, did you pay for college or your parents?
My parents paid for my first year, and then I got loans for the rest of my 4 years.
So, you got the DUI your 4th year. So you're like
20.
You thought maybe you should quit drinking, or the terms of your probation or whatever made you quit drinking?
The stuff that going to the classes for probation and them talking about like so many people end up getting a second DUI and me realizing that I was still doing stupid shit that could very well be me and I didn't want that to be me. So I was like, I need to quit this. And I started going to like AA. I only went to AA for maybe 3 months, up to 3 months.
You don't think you have a problem drinking, do you?
I know I do. Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
You still drink?
Unfortunately, yes. I'm working on it. It's been like a process, and it's since that happened, I've been on and off with trying to find like sobriety that will stick. But
I can leave this out, or does this?
I don't know. I don't.
Is this uncomfortable for you right now?
Not really.
Not the part where we're talking about your past, but your current. You're feeling that you
Have a drinking problem? No, because I tell people this. It's really funny. Most of the people that I work with at the bar know that I go through this back and forth, and that it's something that I deal with, and I have been for the past few years. Like I'll go through periods like I'm not drinking, I'm done, and then I start drinking again. So I'm
not judging. I'm a heavy drinker, as you probably see me drink. I'm a daily drinker.
Yeah.
What makes it a problem?
I know that when I start drinking, I don't have like an off switch. I keep going. There are times when I can go out and have a few drinks and go home, but there's some kind of like setup in my head. I've got to like really set an intention, and there's a bit of a struggle with it, and things like that. And on top of that, there are days when I wake up and I say I'm not going to drink, and then I end up drinking anyway. And I just don't like how
tell me more about
I feel.
You can't stop drinking.
Once I start?
You feel like because you're blacking out that it's irresponsible, or are you acting out, or are you getting in trouble?
And that's the thing is, in all the sobriety work I've been doing, a lot of people have problems where they get in trouble, and knock on wood so far. I haven't gotten another DUI. I'm very good about Ubering, things like that. I don't get crazy induced generally. Like every once in a while, somebody will say that I did something silly, but it's silly. Like I don't get in fights. I don't cry. I don't do any of these like really terrible things. Even one of my friends right now was like, you're just too hard on yourself the next day. Like just because you forget stuff, it's fine. I'm like, no, I mean, it's not okay to drink that much, It's not okay to drink and not realize, hey, I'm drunk enough now. I should probably stop,
So it's kind of partly feeling unhealthy and just feeling uneasy the next day more than acting out or doing something.
Yeah, very much so. And just,
yeah, go ahead.
And the other thing is like I haven't been here very much lately, and it's so much because of drinking, and it's the recovery time, like the time that I waste feeling better or sleeping more or eating junk food or it's not, I don't like it.
So when you're having fun at college and now you stop drinking, doesn't that make it quite boring for 2.5 years?
No, and it's so funny. Like I think about it. So I quit drinking for 2.5 years. I was dating somebody and he was still drinking all the time, and it didn't really bother me. And like actually, I enjoyed those times where he would go out at night and go to his parties and do whatever, and I would stay home and I'd clean the house and I'd just get stuff done by myself. And school was so much easier. By this point, I'd switched over to an economics degree because that 4th semester of calculus is just stupid. So I switched over to economics, and it was so easy. Those last, I guess it was 4 semesters of school, I just had to go to class. I didn't have to spend a lot of time studying outside of class. If I just showed up for class and paid attention and took notes, I didn't have to try really hard to get A's in school. Like everything was just so much easier again. And I don't feel like it was boring. I mean, I don't know. It was like a weird part of my life. Like I think about why that guy and I didn't work out, and I can't remember what happened with us. Like, so there's things I just don't remember, which is weird because I wasn't drinking, but I don't remember it all feeling like it was boring. I just remember feeling like this is good. Like I'm not worried about spending too much money or being hungover or whatever it was at the time.
So you did start to drink again then?
Yes, I did. Right about when I graduated school. And then I moved back to Houston, and I had a 9-to-5 for a little bit, but it was really hard. Like I graduated and I was like, oh, I've been doing this for 8 years and I'm done, and I'm going to get a real job and I'm going to be a grown up and it's all going to be like great. And you don't like graduate and they just give you that piece of paper and then somebody gives you a job. And I was working at a 9 to 5, and I was also working at the bar on the weekends to make ends meet still. And it got to the point where I was like, you know what? I could give up these 35 hours a week at the 9 to 5 and pick up 2 more shifts at the bar and make more money.
What was the 9 to 5 job?
I was working at a market research facility. I was basically a receptionist, but it was a pretty cool place. People would come in and like Jack in the Box would be like, we want to have a focus group. Find us people to do that. And then Jack in the Box would come in and have a focus group at our place and things like that.
Do you kind of regret leaving that 9 to 5 corporate to go?
Yeah, a little bit. Part of me wishes I just would have stuck it out. But I also know that where I was at that point in my life, I just couldn't see it. I couldn't see that that's what I needed to do, that would have been better. I probably needed to like run my course a little bit more with stuff. And I wouldn't have ended up here in Austin if I would have done that. So.
Well, tell me about that. What do you mean?
Because I worked at the bar, it put me in touch with people that I knew that were coming up here for Memorial Day one weekend. And because I came up here for Memorial Day one weekend, I met a guy that lived up here. And I moved up here because of him. And I like being in Austin more than Houston. I like Houston. I love it, but it's prettier here. It's nicer here. I think it's a different culture and environment here.
So we jumped ahead.
Yeah.
What's going on from when you moved to Houston? This is years, right?
Yeah.
So anything happen? Did you meet anybody? Did you get married? Did you
No, none of that.
tough breakups?
None of that. No, so the hardest thing was I graduated from college, like I said, and ended up back at the bar. And I worked at this bar and I was in Houston for a year and a half after I graduated. And that was probably one of, I think, thinking back on it, the worst, like least favorite, darkest kind of bad parts of my life, because I didn't really feel comfortable at the bar I worked at. Like I felt like everybody's so cool and so pretty and I don't fit in with these people. And I was also hating myself for not having a quote unquote real job or a grown up job or a 9 to 5. And you know, I was also living with my parents at the time. So I had like a lot of like bad feelings about myself, and I was drinking a lot and acting out and doing really stupid stuff when I lived there. You could totally leave this in here because I tell everybody else. I was sleeping around a lot, like girl stuff, you know, like that's how I want to make myself feel better, is like, if I find this guy, if I make him love him, so make him love me that way, which was stupid.
Is that okay if I leave this in?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, no, you don't, I know you don't have to. It's funny, like, I'm not, again, I'm open, this is stuff I'm open with all my friends and people that know me, is like, that was just part of me. And I think a lot of chicks do stuff like that, like have periods of time or still do stuff like that. And at least I feel like, at least I know that I grew out of it, and that, you know, it was unfortunate and it's definitely painful in a lot of ways. But it happened, you know.
See, I think it's important, because for other people that may have gone through it, instead of feeling bad, well, that's a period in my life or your life, and it's not to be judged on, it's just something people go through, right? Exactly, and that's how I feel. I mean, I feel like I really believe that we're like, we're all on like our path, whatever the path is, and it's not all like rainbows and sunshine and unicorns and glitter all the time, that everything you go through puts you where you are right now. You can't go back and change it anyway, so have it how it was and do you think that was like a
move on.
Self-esteem thing?
Oh yeah, so much. It was so much. So yeah, and I feel like getting out of Houston. Well, I don't know. Do you want to skip ahead? I'll just say getting out of Houston.
No, we can go anywhere. Go forward or backwards.
I feel like that's something that I appreciate out of getting out of Houston, was coming up here again, like a different environment. Like, I don't know how to say this. I feel like the people that I was around in Houston and just what I see like in my sisters and stuff is down there, there's so much more. I'm not saying it doesn't happen here in Austin at all, but the people that I was around in Houston were very interested in like how much money you had or how much money you spent or what you looked like and these kind of things. And that's part of why I didn't like myself when I worked at that bar, is because I feel like I didn't fit in with that. And I came up here, And I've always lived North Austin, and it's just it's nice up here. I don't feel like I have to be a certain way or spend a certain amount of money to.
Yeah, not to stereotype entire towns, but I feel like that for Dallas too.
Mm-hmm.
And Houston, parts of Houston is like that.
I agree.
I mean, and sometimes the domain over here is kind of
Exactly, and that's what I was saying. Like, it's hard to, like, you can't just group it all together because there's some that aren't. But, and that's why I qualified it with the people that I knew, where I was hanging out. And then I've come up here and I've just met different people and had different experiences that I don't feel like I would have had if I would have stayed in Houston. Maybe, but who knows?
So, what's your body image like? Then you worried that everybody's prettier than you, everybody's better than you?
That was definitely going on in Houston. Trying to think. I don't remember how I was working out. I know that when I was working that 9 to 5 that I would go to the gym before and after work so I could miss traffic. Like I would get up early, drive into, like I worked by the Galleria, work out. And I just still wasn't that lean, I don't feel like. I don't know. But yeah, I just always still had that body image of like, I want to look like those girls in the magazines thing going on.
Do you actively limit your calories or anything like that now? Any types of tendencies like that, or? No,
but that's like a bigger, like, that's like a more of a process that's gone on. I guess since I moved up here to now, or to CrossFit. So I moved up here after I broke up with the guy that I moved up here for. I ended up doing. I'd wanted to do figure, but I didn't know there was a bikini competition, and that I was seriously not even any kind of qualified to be doing a figure competition. But I did a competition, and it was great. I don't even know how I placed in the bikini competition. It was the best thing ever. I loved it. And it was kind of like a thing that I'd wanted to do for a long time, and I did it. And I thought I was going to stay with that lifestyle. I was like, oh, I'm just going to keep up with this and then, compete more and get better and all these things. But the restricting my calories like that was not good. I binged a few times when I was on my prep, and then once the contest prep was over, I was binging. And then I met a girl up here that I was hanging out with, and we drank so much. We drank a lot. So I went through about a year after my contest. I did not ever compete again of that. Like, I would go back and forth between that, like, super strict, like trying to stick to that contest prep diet again, and then go to, like, just eating whatever and feeling bad about myself. Like, well, if I'm not eating perfect, then I'm going to eat garbage and whatever. After that, I did like this online weight loss course, kind of. Which was pretty cool. I learned a lot of things from that. I didn't have any weight to lose looking at it now, obviously. But, and then a year after I finished that was when I started doing CrossFit. And I had balanced out the periods of like super strict eating and binging, and no more like big swings like that in like my diet or restricting myself, because I realized that wasn't working. And I started CrossFit. And so right when I started this, about a month after I started, somebody who'd been really close to me died. He killed himself. And that was hard. I didn't work for like probably 3 weeks. And all I did was I did yoga 3 times. I went running 3 times a week. I did CrossFit 5 times a week. I would do yoga 3 or 4 times a week. And all I was doing was working out like crazy, also drinking a lot, and maybe eating like once a day. And I got really, really lean. I felt like really good about myself, but I finally realized I had to stop. I had to stop drinking, like that wasn't working. So when I stopped drinking, I started eating more. So I'm still coming to CrossFit 5 times a week, but I'm eating more, and I'm gaining this weight, and I feel terrible about myself, and I'm just like, and then the binging would start because I would be like, I need to lose weight, I need to stop. But the more I would worry about trying to lose weight, the more I would eat. And I was like eating, like, those like sharing size chocolate, like bags of candy at the convenience stores. They always have a deal on them where like they're cheaper if you buy 2. I would eat like between 4 and 6 of those a day. But people at work and my friends would be like, you look so good, you look so healthy. And I started to be like, what? I feel like I'm gross, and these people are telling me I look healthy. And Also around that time, I went to like a few competitions, CrossFit competitions, and I started seeing these other girls and this other body types, and started, I guess that's when like my image of what I wanted my body to look like started shifting. Like it went from that like bikini competitor thing to like a more CrossFit, like healthier, like muscular body. And I stopped worrying so much about what my body looked like. And I started to realize that what I could eat for how much I was working out, you know, and wasn't trying to limit things as much. And I think that was the biggest thing with CrossFit was it showed me a different way of looking at my body, I guess. And I relaxed more around like how much I was eating or how I was or wasn't eating and stuff like that.
So when you say binging, you don't mean binging and purging?
No purging, just binging.
Just eating a lot?
Yeah, just eating a lot.
So tell me about we'll go back to the competition, bikini competition.
Mm-hmm.
What were you eating? I know a few people that have done that. It's pretty strict. What
Super
was your
strict.
regimen?
It was the same 6 meals every day for like 12 weeks. Wake up, it would be some egg whites, half a grapefruit and some oatmeal. And then the next meal would be like oatmeal and some protein powder and half a grapefruit. And then it would be, that was 2 meals. We'd have 6 ounces of chicken and 6 ounces of, I don't know how many ounces of chicken. Is that right? I don't know. Chicken and green beans and brown rice. Another chicken and green beans and sweet potatoes. And then like some kind of like maybe lean beef and veggies. And then protein powder and just protein powder, I think was like casein or something. It was like my last meal. And that was it.
What'd you get down to?
I didn't weigh myself before I went on stage. I think I was probably 136 or so, 35 or 36. They wanted me, like my coach had wanted me to go on stage at like 127, and I didn't know.
Did you say you placed?
I did. I got 4th place. I was the
You only did
happiest.
that one competition?
Yes.
So the years when your friend committed suicide, that's recent, right?
Yeah, that was 3.5 years ago. Yeah, 3.5 years ago.
Do you want to talk about him a little more? Or?
Yeah, he was, I dated him for almost 2.5 years. And it was still that weird part of time. I'd broken up with a guy, did my competition, started hanging out with that girl that I drank a lot with. And then right when I was telling her like, hey, we have got to stop hanging out because this is not healthy for me. I'm drinking too much and all this. I'm phasing her out of my life, and then I meet him and I start dating him, and it was the same thing. He had been in the Army and gotten hit with a grenade and got discharged from the Army, and it had just, that's all he'd ever wanted to do with himself was be in the Army. So for 10 years he had been mourning this not being able to be in the Army anymore, and that's all he did was mourn that and drink all the time. And he was on full disability. This dude could drink like no other. So I drank a lot with him for like probably the first year, and then it got to that same point where I was like, I need to stop. Like I can't keep doing this. And so I was actually better at quitting drinking when I was with him because I could be like, this is so bad, I'm not going to do it anymore. And I would quit for a couple months here and there. But he was looking for somebody to help him fix his life. That definitely wasn't me. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even know, I don't think I really understood the whole and seriousness of our relationship or his problem or something. It was a really crazy messed up time. So over that course of that 2.5 years, things were just, I was like, look, I wanted to help him, but I just couldn't. And it got to the point where I was like, I can't be this for you. We don't have the same like feelings for each other in this relationship, and trying to get away from him, and break up with him. And he deteriorated like that last few years. Like things just started getting worse in his life. He was falling apart, and we stopped seeing each other. And then within it was probably about 2.5 months after we stopped. Last time I saw him one more night. I ran into him, and then he killed himself that night, outside Little Woodrow's, basically, in this car, the parking lot. And he was like all Little Woodrow's, like that's where I work, and he was there all the time. Everybody knew him. It was a big deal.
Did he shoot himself in his car?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do you think he had more time, more of a problem integrating back into society, or a combination of PTSD, or just not knowing what to do with himself?
It was a lot of that. There was definitely a lot of PTSD. I don't think he had seen and dealt with a lot of things. He had been a sniper. He told me at some point that he tried to live every day as best as he could, as far as being kind to other people and helping make other people's days better, because of everything that he had done when he had been in the Army. So he had a lot of guilt behind that, and the feelings and the PTSD, and he just didn't know how to deal with all of it. He didn't know what to do with himself. Like, all he wanted to do was to be in the Army and to be, have that role and be a leader there like he was, and having that taken away from him, he didn't know how to deal with it or move forward.
What injury did he suffer?
He was on a rooftop with another buddy of his. Somebody threw a grenade up there. It hit him. He brushed it off, and it went off, and it like shredded his legs open, cut his face a little bit. So mostly it was his legs that got injured, I guess. But he's always talked about how it had like cut his lip and his chin, and he always had like a big beard and a mustache, he said, to cover up for that. But he could still walk. He had all of his body parts, but he was in constant pain, constant nerve pain. And he had taken himself off. He had been on morphine and stuff like that, and had cold turkeyed it by himself off of that, because he didn't like how he was on all of those things. But he ultimately substituted it with alcohol.
It was chronic pain then, all the time?
All the time.
Where'd you meet him?
At Little Woodrow's.
Okay. Well, let's talk more about your fitness life.
Yeah.
So, was our gym the first CrossFit gym you've been to?
Mm-hmm. I have a funny, so I didn't, people used to tell me to do CrossFit, or no, I would be at the bar, right, and I'm fit, or I look fit, and people would come and be like, oh my gosh, you do CrossFit? And I used to get so annoyed, because I would be like, no, you can be fit and not do CrossFit. So, kind of, out of principle, did not like CrossFit just for that, and because I felt like, oh, it's trendy. But I had one of the regulars that came in. His son did CrossFit all the time, so he would talk to me about it. He's like, you really should try it. You really should try it. And then y'all had a group on, and I was like, okay, I can do this. Oh, and that was the other part. It was expensive. I was like, I can't pay that much money to go to the gym. But y'all had a group on, and I came in, and I did it, and I was like, I loved it. I loved it. I liked learning new stuff, like the Olympic lifting and stuff that I'd never done. I'd been interested in it, but had no idea where to learn it from. So learning that kind of stuff. Having the small group environment with like a coach there, and somebody like actually like showing you things. Like, I'd been squatting since I was 16, half my life, and my squats have changed and progressed so much in the past 2.5 years, more so than they ever did in the first 16 years that I was lifting weights. So yeah, this is the first CrossFit gym I came to. I loved it.
So where do we go from here with your life? What do you want to do? And I know you're not completely content with being a bartender.
Bartending's been good, and there's a reason. I've gone through periods of hating it and hating myself for it, and then coming out of it and realizing it's a good job, and I make a lot of money there. It's fun, I have a great schedule, and it's flexible. But it's just it's on its last legs of usefulness for me. It's still really good money, and that's going to be the biggest adjustment for me, is when I get a 9-to-5, the money will be different.
Let's talk about what you want to do or think you want to do.
I don't know.
You want that 9-to-5, and I would recommend against it. But
Mm-hmm.
it's the grown-up thing to do or whatever. It's what we were taught when we were kids, to go work for somebody.
Yep.
But what do you really want to do? Is it too silly to say out loud?
No, I mean, part of yes. And the first things that I think of, I think are ridiculous, and I'm afraid to tell people that that's what I want to do. And so I'm trying to like water it down or make it more general so it's not.
Let's give it a shot.
The crazy thing?
That's the honest thing.
The honest thing. I've always wanted to help people, right? So just real quick, going back, when I withdrew from A&M for a year and a half, and I decided I couldn't do math anymore, and I was trying to find a new degree, I wanted to do something psychology related because of I knew everybody I knew had an eating disorder at some point. Like, I was in a weightlifting class at school, and like these girls were like, oh my God, am I going to look like a man? And am I going to lose my boobs? And all these things that I didn't worry about because I'd been doing weightlifting for so long. And I was like, I want to show girls like how to love their bodies and enjoy their bodies and work out and feel comfortable in the weight room and all these things and help people like that. So I ended up not doing that. I would have lost too many credits. And I've thought about being a personal trainer for like 8 years, and I've still never gotten that certification. And now, but for me, it's progressed a little bit more to a lot of the things I've learned as far as how you think about life and how you think about yourself and all of this stuff that's in your head. So I want to help people. I just don't know the direction to go with it without getting another degree. So that's not very specific. If I could write, that'd be great.
Was that you're embarrassed about, or did you switch it?
Well, it's more like embarrassed. I feel like it's so, I don't know. So I follow all these women on Instagram and like and I don't mean like the Instagram models, but there's a girl that I follow who's big on sobriety, and she writes and she speaks and she has like sobriety schools and all this kind of stuff. And she's probably one of my idols. I don't know that I think sobriety is important to me, but I'm not big on pushing it on other people. But I want something like that, something where I can like teach people about, I don't know, if it's being more like mindful and like and aware of your feelings and dealing with your feelings instead of running away from them, which would solve so many problems in everybody's lives, from eating too much to drinking too much to sitting and binge watching TV. I don't know if that's what it is.
You don't want to put it in a box like, oh, I'm going to be a counselor of this. You want something more broad.
Well, because I haven't figured out specifically like my direction that I want. Like, I feel like there's something I should probably zero in on, or I should zero in on something specifically, but I don't know. I haven't fully figured that out in my head what it is. So.
What else? Was that the only one?
Yeah, just like I said, that's some kind of just like how to help people have like better, happier, fuller lives.
So it could be anything. You just don't know the channel, the avenue.
Correct. And in the meantime, I just want anything right now that is not be working 7 p.m. to 3 or 4 a.m. 5 nights a week. Even if it's a 9 to 5 for a minute before I find something else. I don't know. It's wearing on me.
Do you think that transition will be hard to go back to? Because it's been quite some time. What if I told you, this is just for fun, what if I told you I could get you a job, 9 to 5, but you gotta wake up early, you gotta give up the...
I don't know. I like mornings. I mean, and even right now, when the nights that I'm off work and I stay with my boyfriend who has a 9 to 5, whatever, daytime job, I enjoy going to bed early with him and waking up at 6 or 7 in the morning and having coffee and then doing your day, and you have so much more daytime left to do stuff. No, I'm not one of the, I feel like there's definitely a lot of bar people that sleep until 3 or 4 in the afternoon and stay up really late. And I really try to get it to bed as soon as I can after I get off work and get up before noon, ideally, so I can do stuff with myself.
So as this person that helps people, what would be your advice to them on how to live in the moment or the past or the future, or
live in the moment?
Being, regret or embarrassment. If you wanted to be in that type of person, what would that main philosophy be like?
I haven't even tried to put that into any kind of succinct terms. I would say you need to learn to feel, this sounds so cheesy to people, I know it, but I believe it. Feel your heart and listen to it and just feel your heart and listen to it. Like, you have everything that you need here, and it can tell you what to do, and we just don't ever listen to that. We don't learn how to listen to that. And just, it's not all going to be easy. There's going to be things that suck and that are hard, but you can get through it all. Like, just being here right now, not trying to like look into the future, think about the past, like right here, right now. And then once you get more accepting of that, it's easier to be more accepting of, I think, of maybe what has happened in the past and like the things that may or may not happen in the future. I don't know. That's a very rough draft.